The last envelope from the shore. The morning David laid the papers on the kitchen table. Margaret Collins could not pick up the pen. The cover sheet read Assisted Living Facility Admission Agreement. She noticed that his hands were perfectly steady as he slid it toward her. That steadiness frightened her more than the words on the page. "Mom, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I need to be honest with you. Living alone isn't safe anymore. You left the stove on last month. You missed 3 days of medication, and the neighbors called me twice. I have work, and Lisa just can't keep coming over every other day. The facility is really good. I drove out there myself. They have activities, medical staff on site, the whole thing." David spoke toward the window. Not to her. He was her son. 37 years of him. The boy she drove to every practice, every early morning. Before the rest of the town woke up. The young man whose college tuition she had worked overtime to cover for 3 straight years. And now here he was, reducing her life to a signature line on one sheet of paper. The pen sat waiting on top of the form. Margaret did not reach for it. "David, Mom, just sign it. I'll handle everything else from here. Before I do anything, I want to go to Santa Barbara. To the beach where your father and I used to go. One day. That is all I am asking." David paused. He exhaled slowly through his nose. If that sound had been aimed at you, what would you have felt? It was the sound of inconvenience. The exhale of a man who felt that his time was being wasted. The last wish of a woman who had given 37 years of herself. Reduced in one breath to a scheduling problem. Margaret held that sound quietly inside her chest and said nothing. That evening she packed alone. Into an old canvas travel bag she placed a light spring jacket, her medication case, and a worn leather notebook. She had kept at the back of her nightstand drawer for 3 years without once opening it. Robert had given her that notebook 6 months before he died. "Take this to Santa Barbara when you go. Open it only there. Promise me." She had not understood what he meant by it. He was weak from his second round of chemotherapy, and she would have agreed to anything he asked. So she promised and set the notebook in the drawer. 3 years had passed. It had not been opened. The next morning she left without telling David. She drove herself down the coast highway. The Pacific came into view as she crossed the county line, that deep cold blue. That she and Robert had always agreed was one of the finest things about living in California. She found the same parking area near the beach they always used, the one with the curved rock formation at the far end. She sat in the car a moment before getting out. The salt air hit her when she opened the door. That smell, unchanged after 20 years. Everything else in her life had shifted and rearranged itself. But this smell was still exactly what it had been the first time. She and Robert came here together. She walked slowly down to the sand. Her knees ached on the uneven ground. She did not stop. This beach held 40 years of memory and she needed all of it now. She and Robert had come here when they were young and slightly sunburned, and completely certain that the future was going to be something extraordinary. Robert had written their names in the wet sand near the waterline. And the next wave had come and erased them. And he had laughed and said it did not matter because they were not going anywhere. She had brought David here when he was 7. He had cried when a wave knocked over his sandcastle and Robert had knelt beside him in the wet sand and told him that everything worth building gets knocked over at least once. And the whole point is to build it again. David had sniffled and started digging immediately. They had all laughed together. And 4 years ago, when Robert was nearing the end of his treatment, and they both understood what that meant. They had driven down here one final time and sat exactly where she was sitting now. "Promise me you will keep coming here," he had said. "I promise. And promise me you will be okay." She had squeezed his hand instead of answering that one. She took the notebook from her bag. The cover was worn soft from years of sitting in the drawer, though she had never opened it. She ran her thumb along the edge of the pages. Then she opened to the first page. A sealed envelope slipped out. On the front, in Robert's handwriting, "Open only at the beach." Only there. Her hands were not steady. She opened it carefully. Inside were 2 pages written by hand, in the careful, controlled script of a man who understood that words put on paper would outlast everything else. His handwriting was tighter than usual. She recognized that effort. He had been fighting the tremor from the medication. She read the first sentence and stopped. Maggie, if you are reading this, then I am gone. And if you are reading this at the beach, something is happening with David and you are trying to find your way through it. I know you. I know him. So let me tell you what I know. She read it a second time before continuing. The house is in your name alone. I transferred everything into your name about 10 years ago, quietly. And I want you to understand that was completely intentional. The investment accounts are the same way. 3 of them, your name only. David is aware of this. He had a conversation with our financial advisor without telling either of us. Sandra called me afterward and let me know. I did not tell David that she had called. But I changed advisors immediately. And made sure everything was correctly secured. Do not sign anything David puts in front of you, without having your own attorney present. Not one page. Margaret set the letter down in her lap. She listened to the waves for a long time without moving. The second page was harder to get through. Last spring David called my oncologist's office and asked to speak with Dr. Reeves privately. He wanted to know my timeline. She told him professionally that she could not disclose that. But she called me afterward to let me know it had happened. He also asked her, in that same conversation, whether our estate was likely to go through probate. She did not answer that either, but she felt I should know. I sat with that information for several weeks. I thought about confronting him. I decided that was not how I wanted to use what time I had left. I spent it making sure you were protected instead. You always came first. That was never a decision I had to make. It was simply how things were. Margaret did not look up from the letter for a long time. Her son had called her husband's doctor to ask how long he had left. And in that same call had asked about the estate. And Robert had found out and said nothing. Had sat across the dinner table from their son through the final months. Had carried all of that alone. And had spent his last good weeks making certain she would be safe. The waves came in and went back out. She did not cry immediately. The grief was too solid for that. It sat in her chest like something that had not yet decided what shape to take. She took out her phone. She found David's name. She did not call. She opened her photos instead and went back to the oldest ones. David at 7 on this exact beach. Laughing with sand on his face and his eyes completely open. She looked at his eyes in that photograph for a long time. She could not connect the man who had called the oncologist with the child in that picture. She did not know whether that was a failure of understanding on her part, or simply the nature of people over time. Then she found the last photograph of Robert at this beach. He was thin. His hair was nearly gone. He was holding her hand and facing the camera and smiling with his whole face. Below the photo, in the caption field, was something he must have typed himself at some point. None of it meant anything without her. She pressed the phone against her chest. She did not make a sound. The ocean received all of it quietly on her behalf. She did not know how long she sat there. The sun moved. The tide shifted slightly. The air stayed at the same cool, salt temperature it always held on this stretch of coast in April. When she finally stood, she brushed the sand from her coat, picked up her bag, folded the letter back into the notebook, and searched her phone for estate attorneys in Santa Barbara. 2 days later she was home. David did not know she had been anywhere. His text arrived while Margaret was sitting in the attorney's office, with the title documents spread on the table in front of her. Mom, the facility coordinator called. They need the paperwork submitted by end of this week. I can come by tonight. Every account was confirmed and intact. The house was hers alone. The accounts were hers alone. David had known this. He had still brought her the papers. The attorney asked whether she intended to contact her son. Margaret looked out at the California afternoon sky. The same blue it always was. Not yet, she said. I need some time to decide what I want. When she stepped outside, she felt something shift in how she was carrying herself. Her shoulders settled into a position they had not been in for a long time. She was not fearless. She was something more durable than fearless. That evening she opened the box at the back of her closet, where she kept Robert's things. At the very back of the box was one more envelope. On the front, in his handwriting for David. She held it for a long time. If this story reached something in you today, please subscribe to this channel. Every week we bring you stories that live in the quiet places, where real life actually happens. We will be here.